Wow, hello there, and welcome back to Data Analysis in Excel. Wow, we are at a very powerful topic. We're going to look at conditional statistics using some ifs, count ifs, and average ifs. What is if and ifs and what they mean and all. We'll look at how to use them and when to use them. It's a very interesting part of Excel. Please, if you don't understand this, feel free to watch this video again and again, or to reach out if you need more clarification. Let's just dive right in. Um, so basically, we know that if I have a data set like this, and I select the range, I can see here on the status bar that the sum is 137. I have the counts, I have the marks, and the average, right? And of course, I can come here and say equals sum and select this range, and I press enter, and I see my sum here. Fine. But what if I want to add up all the 13-year-olds? Or I want to count how many 10-year-olds are here. Now, that is not just a statistic. That is now a conditional statistic because I'm not counting the entire data set. I'm counting based on a criteria, right? I'm basically filtering the data set and then running uh, an aggregation on that data set. So that is where you use the sum if or the sum if or the count if as the case may be. So um, there are some common arguments, right? I'm going to look at them as we're moving. So we have the sum range. Basically, this is the range of values that you want to sum up, right? The criteria range is the criteria, and the anytime you see the word range, right, you know that you're talking about a list, like a range of values, a range of cells. But when you see the word just criteria, it means you are using a specific value. Enough of talk, let's just jump into Excel and see what's happening. We're going to create a very simple table here. We're actually going to create it from scratch, and then we'll use that table to understand what we're doing. So the first header in the table is going to be the list of ages. So I'm going to have a unique list of all the ages that are here, right? And if you watch I think the last video, we talked about how to remove duplicates, right? To calculate the unique list of ages. So I'm going to have that here. Then here I'm going to have the total age based on each based on each age number. I'm going to have the count as well. So we have these three things that we want to fill in. Obviously, you can see that you can format this anyhow you like, but for me, I'm going to select my headers, make them bold. I'm going to give them a dark background. This is the fill color. I click on the drop down. I want this dark background. And then I'm going to give them a font color of white so that it lists out. And that's how I've been doing this headers that I have. So I have my list of ages. How do I calculate my unique list? With that in the last class, I can copy this and paste it somewhere here, right? And I can do my data and remove duplicates, right? Or I can press Alt AM, and that just gives me, I can type OK, and now I have my unique list. I can copy this and I can choose to paste as values because I don't want these um borders. I personally don't like them. You can leave the borders there if you want. I'm going to paste as values. To paste as values, there are two ways of pasting as values. You can right click and you see this 1, 2, 3 here. Once I click on it, it just pastes the values. The formatting that is there is gone, right? Another way of pasting as values, which I use a lot, is to use the keyboard Alt ES. So what Alt ES does is that I can right click. Let me come here and copy again. Copy. If I come here, I can right click and there's a button. This is paste special. Once I click on it, this is paste special dialog box. I can paste as values from here. To get to paste special value, I can type Alt ES. Not Alt ES together. That's Alt, then E, then S, one by one, right? And I can see here V is underlined. So instead of clicking on V here, let's say it was A, I can type V and I press OK. So you're going to see me do this a lot, where I'm going to just take a value like this. I'm going to Control C, select this, I'm going to type Alt ESV, enter, right? So that is how you paste as values very quickly. I don't need this data again, so I can clear this data. So to clear this range, If I just press delete, if I select delete, I still have my formatting here. I don't want to see that formatting at all. So I can either go to home, under clear, this is clear here, this button here is clear, and you can see clear all. This clears format, this clears content, which is basically you pressing delete. I want to clear all, so I can click on this and I clear all. Let me control Z. The keyboard for that is Alt, you see. Then for home, you have H. For clear, you have E. And then, of course, for all, you have A. And that clears everything. But what I personally choose to do most times is I will just copy an empty cell, select the range, and just paste over it. And that clears everything. That is if I want to clear it all right. So I have my unique list of ages. This is not sorted. I want to sort this from 10 to 11 to 12 and the rest. So I can select this range. Two ways of sorting. I can either come here, go to home, and I can see under sort and filter, here is A to Z, Z to A. The reason why I don't like using this is because for you to sort like that, your cursor must be on the column you want to sort. So if I come here and I click, sorry, not file, home, I click on this and I click on, A to Z. If I click on this, this gets sorted, right? Which is fine, Control Z. I prefer to use filter. So instead of me going to data and clicking on this filter here, I can press Control Shift L to remove the filter from here, Control Shift L to put it here. Once I click on this drop down, now I know exactly which column I'm sorting. So I'm going to click on the drop down and I can say sort smallest to largest, and that gives me, I can press Control Shift L to get rid of the filter. Okay, so under the list of ages, I'm going to type total. Okay, now I want a formula here that's going to sum up all the 10-year-olds. So I have 10, 20, 30, and 40. So the total age of all the 10-year-olds is 40. For 11-year-olds, I have 11 here. So the total age of all the 11-year-olds is 22. So I want a formula that I will write one formula and copy it down, and it will engage in that task for me. So there are two formulas, sum if and sum ifs. I personally do not use sum if or count if or average if, because the difference between the both of them is that sum if only allows for one criteria. You can only use one criteria for sum if, whereas sum ifs allows for multiple criteria, which is for me is better in the long run because you can add you know more criteria in the long run. But I'll show you sum if and I'll show you count if just once, and we're never going to use it again. All right, so let's move. Equals sum if. You can see it adds the cells specified by a given condition or criteria. So I'm going to press tab. So another reason why I don't use sum if is because the arguments are not clearly named. This just says range. What does this range mean? Actually, this range I'm talking about is supposed to be called criteria range. And we're going to see why later, right? But this just means where is the range of numbers that you are looking at to filter. In this case, I want to filter the ages, so I can select this. Okay. Now, I'm going to copy this formula down. I'm going to copy from here to here to here. So I need to press F4 to log this. Comma. What's the criteria? The criteria is 10. What this basically means is Excel, in this range A14 to A25, please go and look for all the numbers that are 10 and then add them up. Now the sum range, comma, in this case, the sum range is the same as the criteria range because it's looking at this column and it's adding up this column. Once the sum range is the same as the criteria range, you don't need this last argument. And as you can see, the last argument is in brackets, meaning that it's actually optional. So I can close and control enter. And I can drag this down. If I come to the last, I double click. Basically, I'm saying go to this range and add up, that's sum if, add up all the 13s, and you can see it here. If I select this range down, I can see that my total is 137. So if I come here and I press Alt equals, I can see that I have 137, which means I have done this analysis clearly. So I have the total age of all the 10-year-olds is 40, total age of all the 11-year-olds is 22, and so on and so forth. So that is sum if. Now we're going to delete this and use the sum ifs formula so that we understand why that is better. Equals sum ifs tab. The first thing you do in the sum ifs is that you will put the sum range, right? You need to put the sum range, and you can see this is clearly said sum range. I'm adding up this range, so I have to select the range. Again, I'm copying down, so I press F4, comma. Now, what's the criteria range? Meaning, where are you filtering? I'm also filtering this range. Again, I press F4 to lock it, comma, then criteria 1. And as you can see, as soon as I've done with criteria 1, I have criteria 2 there. Well, we'll see example of multiple criteria, in subsequent examples. So I can click on this as my criteria. So what this is saying is, Excel, go to this range and sum it up, but only sum it up when this same range is equal to this value. So I can close, Control Z. I need to select this, unselect that, close, Control Enter, and I can click and drag down. Now you might be wondering, man, this formula looks longer than the other one. Don't worry, you see why it is more important later. Alt equals, and that gives me my 137. Let's look at count. I want to count how many tens are here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to see 4 here, right? So I can use the formula count if. And count if and count ifs is basically the same, just like sum if and sum ifs. Count if only allows for one condition. Count ifs allows for multiple. We'll use the two of them right now. So the range is this. F4 to lock it because we're copying down, comma, the criteria is this, and that's all. I'm saying in this range, count how many of them are 10. Once I close this, Control Enter, I can see that the count is 4. If I click and drag, I can see that the count here is 2. I can see that because I locked this cell well, as I'm copying down, it's not moving. I've discussed that already. So I can come here and Alt equals, and I can see I have 12 numbers here. If I select the range here and I come down here, I can see I have a count of 12 as well. So this is fine. Let me delete this and show you the count ifs as well, which is what we'll be using going forward. Because count ifs, just like some ifs, is more versatile. So equals count, if I can spell, count ifs tab criteria 1. As you can see, when you see criteria range 1, it means that there will be criteria range 2 and so on and so forth. So criteria range 1 is this range. Notice range has to do with a range always. F4 to lock it because I'm copying it down, comma, criteria 1 is this. I can close this, Control Enter, drag this down, and then Alt equals to put in the sum. And as you can see, the values there are exactly the same. Of course, I need to format my totals, Control B to make it bold. Then you can go to Home, and you can, on this your borders, I can click on this drop down, and I prefer to use the top and thick bottom border. So it gives you a top border and it gives you a thick bottom border. If you are into accounting, you might want to use top and thick and double bottom border, right? And that is a simple summary of this data set. Now, this is just a very small data set. This could go down, to about 1,000 rows or 2,000 rows, and you might need to produce a simple report like this. The beautiful thing about this is that because these are formulas, if I change this 10 to 12, automatically this updates and everything updates. All right, so that's an introduction to conditional statistics. I'll see you in the next video.